What's up, guys? Really excited to be doing this. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and just been too busy with stuff. And also, it took a while for the stuff to come in. I kind of lollygagged on ordering the chemicals. Well, because I had to order a bunch of chemicals for different stuff, not just for this. This is really simple. There's only two things that none of it's really expensive for this acid etching, but just because of shipping and whatnot, I had to order a bunch of chemicals, and so I kind of had to wait because needed a bunch of stuff for different mad science stuff that you'll see. But anyway, acid etching. So you don't need much. I guess here, first thing is good thing to have baking soda around anytime you're working with acids, rags and stuff that are dedicated to not your kitchen, paper towel, gloves. The paper towel and the rags, because when you have spills or if you get it on you, you want a good amount of ways to clean up liquids, clean yourself up without rinsing with water. Because when you're working with acids, if you want to, obviously you want to do a little research, do a little bit of homework, just due diligence to be safe. Take a look at what kinds of precautions you should take and whatnot. Most of it's common sense. But with acids, you don't want to rinse it off you, because if you dilute the acid into water, it'll be more reactive and you burn yourself worse. So you want to dry off. And same with, depending on the surfaces, you don't want to do this in your kitchen sink if your sink is stainless and whatnot, like mine is. You're going to want a pretty good amount of containers and measuring containers. These are like the big, huge, beefy Pyrexes. It's like a 2 or 3 liter measuring cup. Really only need 1 or 2 containers, plastic and glass. But I got a variety because, and then obviously you need the parts we're doing. And I've gone ahead and just painted. I'm gonna do a bunch of different methods of putting the resist on, but that's pretty much all of the work is getting the patterns on there. So that there's a million ways to do. I think everybody, the fancy way is with the image transfer, printing it onto the transparency, and that I'll do that later. This is my very first time experimenting with this, so I just want to keep on doing the old school way that I'm doing. So I just literally taped this out, cut out the pattern with an X-Acto, and painted it super quick and dirty. And then other than that, just need chemicals, which is just salt, well, sodium chloride. You want the lab strength, like 99.9% pure stuff, because if you just use regular salt, you want to change the proportions a little bit. And then copper sulfate, and that's it. Oh, and a scale. And the scale, and then that should be it. Get the big scale, because you don't need anything fine for this. Alright, so for every liter of water, you want 100 grams of copper sulfate and 100 grams of sodium chloride. So I'm just gonna, here, hang on one sec, let me use my headphones. Alright, so 100 grams of this. 50, 60, 70, 80, 89, 95, 96, 97, 100. Okay, and I'm just putting this back in. Sorry, I got it. I'm out of frame, but I'm just gonna try to spoon the rest of this back into the bag. Okay, so there's 100 grams of copper sulfate, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just transfer that into a slightly bigger container that I'll end up actually mixing it in. So let me just shelf this copper sulfate because I'm done with that. Okay, and I think what I'm gonna do is mix it in this one, so I'm just gonna go ahead and put that in here. Make sure that zeros, yep. Okay, same thing, 100 grams. Arlo, nobody. $99, 100, and 2. It's okay to have a little bit extra salt. If you aren't using like the lab sodium chloride and you're just using regular table salt, Google it, but I'm pretty sure you want to add more salt than copper sulfide, like the proportion. Instead of doing 100 and 100 grams, change the percentage significantly in favor of salt. It's better to just get the lab stuff. It's almost no more expensive than table salt anyway, except for the fact that I couldn't find it in Canada, so I had to bite it for shipping. Okay, so I got it in a bigger Pyrex. This is only like a 1 liter. I had a bigger one there, but this will be enough that I can mix it in without. So I'm gonna mix the solution in here. So to this, I'm gonna add. Let me just put this away because I'm done with the scale. And now what I'm gonna do is put that away. And I'm just gonna add a liter of water. I'm gonna use pretty hot water as well. I'm gonna mix this water in here, and I'll get it mixed in this container here, and then I've already got my parts set up in a dish so that way I can use a minimal amount of liquid and have everything submerged. Because if I would have used a big old container to try to submerge it, and it would have needed like liters and upon liters of this. This way, with a nice contoured container, I can hopefully submerge all the parts, and I've got them strategically placed. Better to use warm to hot water, but the thing you want to be careful with hot water is the steam coming off it when you mix this. You don't want to be breathing that in. Gonna let that settle. It should be about a liter. A pinch more. Just gonna give that a chance to stop splashing around and make sure that's a good amount. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty good. Alright, so I should, hopefully I can add, just in case, I'm gonna set this inside this plastic container here, in case I didn't figure this right. Because the amount of powder in there is gonna displace a certain amount of room, right? Like by volume. And this is a 1 liter cup, so there's not going to be a lot of room. Woo, look at that. I figured they're pretty darn close though. One thing I didn't account for is the spout. So glad I put it in the container. It's not spilling yet, but when I go to stir that, it totally is going to come out of that spout. Alright, stir this up. Probably best to not use a metal utensil. Oh yeah, it's fucking totally spilling out of there. Shit. Okay, didn't think that through. Oh well, actually, it's okay because I can pour it back in. Alright. Not a deal breaker, but it does piss me off. It's pouring out of the spout when as I'm mixing it. The little spout of this measuring cup is losing liquid. I'm gonna have to pour that back in. So I'm just stirring that up, trying to dissolve everything. Alright. And now while that's, I'm gonna give that a second to dissolve, and what I'm gonna do is fill up a big old freaking pot of water here. Not hot water for this, just cool water. Sorry, I hope I'm not totally cutting you off here. I don't know where my shot is, but I'm just stirring this. And then I've also got that pot filling. Alright, let's check how I'm doing on this. That's enough of that. Alright. Try to relax. This won't hurt. It's just pressure. That's what they say, but don't believe them. It hurts. It hurts, trust me. The only way it wouldn't hurt is if you're used to that. And believe me, I wasn't used to that. It hurt. Okay, let's see if this is dissolved. Probably put the other glove on because I'm gonna, oh, man. Alright, this is already going awesome. Just gonna put my hand into this acid soaked glove now. Arlo, get out of here. Go. No. Go lie down. Sorry, buddy. But I'm not joking around here. Chemicals. Okay, it's mostly dissolved actually. Fuck. Oh, excuse me. Pardon me. Okay, mostly dissolved. So I'm gonna go ahead and call that good enough for the girls I go out with. So now, here's what I gotta do. Put down some newspaper. Just get this out of the way. Okay, so I'm gonna transfer this onto here. And now, if I can. Oh shit. It's like the meniscus is like right at the spot where that spout goes. Okay, and now this thing should hopefully just fit this perfect as an overflow container. Alright, good enough for the girls I go out with. Okay, so got the water, and I bet you this is right where we ran out of space. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna have to make space on this phone. Actually, no, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna grab a crappier camera that has tons of space, because the resolution won't matter for this part of the video. Yeah, that makes more sense. Okay, that's what I'll do. But I might as well use this till it runs out of space, which is gonna be any second. So here we go. I'm gonna pour the acid into this container. It's got an overflow container that's gonna catch whatever comes out over the top, and hopefully and then what I'm gonna do is remove the pieces out of here and into shit, I can't touch my phone right now because I can see you probably can't see that, but I can see my gloves are all discolored already. Okay, yeah, well, I'm gonna take them out of there after about a minute and then dump them in that pot and scrub them off. And actually, here, can't touch the camera, but maybe I can bump the chair. Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay, maybe I should have made sure it was more dissolved, but what are you gonna do? Just gonna add a tiny bit more water to that because I did lose some. And I don't know if you can see that, but that is definitely reacting like crazy. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do now is try to get it all submerged. Whoa, I can feel the heat. Holy cow. It is heating right up. And actually, I'm surprised at how quickly that slag, the oxide, is building up on the top there. That's pretty impressive. I'm just kind of knocking the oxide off gently. I totally did not figure this right. I thought that this would be fully submerged, but I was mistaken. So that sucks. And it's going to result in me having my hands in this acid a lot more than I had intended, but that's alright. So I'm just kind of moving it around, and spilling acid everywhere. And trying to evenly, since it's not all submerged, I'm trying to sort of, give it an even amount of time. But the important part is knocking that oxide layer off. Okay, I'm I'm just gonna give that a couple minutes now on that side. I totally just gobbed a giant puddle of this over the back of that, but it's okay. I'm surprised this is still recording. This is pretty amazing. And then I'm gonna, after about a minute or so, what I'm gonna do is dunk it in that puddle and really take a good look at it. Check for the depth. Man, I really hope I covered the inside of this thing with paint good enough. Can't forget about these other little pieces either. Just brought that over into the pot and just kind of rubbed as much of that oxide layer off as I could. Oh shit. Oh whoa, don't. Alright guys, sorry about that. That camera went. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this in any kind of detail at all. But I wanted to show you this actually happening, just so you can get a sense of how fast it actually does go. See all that chunk that's coming off there? You can almost watch it. See how the surface of that, it's just swirling, bubbling, almost steaming, and then just like that, it's literally melting away, and you see that chunk build up. That's the oxide. Keep removing that. Actually, let's go this way. I'm just bringing that over to the bucket of water and just cleaning it up real quick so I can take a look at it and just see how I'm doing a little better. One hilarious blunder I already noticed is I forgot to protect a couple screw holes, so those just became vents. It was like the blade retention screws. I forgot to make sure those had a resist, but that's no big deal though. Alright, so now I can see how I'm doing. You can see my pattern there starting to emerge, and it's actually a pretty good depth right now. I don't know if you can see that. Oh yeah. People didn't really like the stars. Let's see what they think of this. Yeah, it's getting a pretty good depth. It's pretty much where I want to be, I think. But just for good measure, give her a couple more minutes. Let me check this pommel. Definitely don't want to be breathing this in. He said while coughing and inhaling deeply. Oh. Yeah, note to self, make sure the frickin' thing gets submerged next time. I did a liter mixture, so that was with using 100 grams of copper chloride and 100 grams of, copper chloride, 100 grams of copper sulfate and 100 grams of sodium chloride. So the 1 liter should have been plenty if I chose the right container, but I was trying to go sparingly on the materials because I didn't have a lot of copper sulfate yet, and more coming. Copper sulfate's the easy one. Potassium nitrate is the one that's a bugger to get. And nitric acid, but that's, you can make your own if you can get potassium nitrate. "15 minutes of watching me swish something around." But I wanted to show you pretty much the whole etch happen. So and I'm going really deep, mind you. That's why, you know, like I said before, most of the work was in the actual getting the resist down. That's painstaking. I had to make sure that I had the inside completely painted. Let me check that. Actually, you know what? Let me keep on going. I'm gonna bring you over here. Alright, so I'm in need of a rubber glove. The oxide keeps reforming even as you're rubbing it off. It's a fairly strong reaction. You can totally see there that those 2 spots that used to be tapped holes for retention screws are gone. But that is a pretty good etch there. That's pretty deep. I think I'll pretty much call that starting to lose some of the resist. Paint's starting to come off, so I'm gonna have to use judgment on when to stop here. I kinda would like it a tiny bit deeper, but I'm losing a lot of my resist. I'm not sure how much longer I could keep going. I don't know if you can see that, but some of it, see the shine here? It's So some of my resist is starting to come off at this point, just from all the bubbling, and it is pretty defined in here. So that one's, if I continue to etch, what'll happen is that right there will erode and it'll look pretty bad. So if I stop right now, it's okay. It hasn't done that yet. Everything else is actually holding up pretty well. A couple of these triangles got the same thing going on up here too. This one and this one. The resist is coming off. Oh, and all this too. Shit. So I think I better call that, because if I keep going and I get any deeper on the rest of this, which is actually still looking really nice, the spots up here where the resist has come off will, it'll start to degrade the image. I'll continue to get more depth if I etch, but the trade-off will be that my image will lose its crispness because the resist is starting to ruin. Well, that's undoubtedly because I didn't have it submerged and I was having to play with it too much. So there you go. There's a learning experience. Let's see. Do we have enough depth here? Because I can always try to just etch the middle part. Why don't I do that? Why don't I call it a day on etching the top here? And I'll just etch. Alright, how can I get you back over there? This is gonna get shaky, sorry. But I can't touch it because my hands are covered. Just gotta slide you guys over. Okay. That'll do. Alright, so maybe I can prop this in a way where only one side is going in. Kind of. Keep the trouble spot out of there anyway. These resists held up really well, but it's kind of obvious why. This one just had a little relief, was the only spot getting etched. And then it was all just one solid resist, so it doesn't surprise me that that piece turned out well. Yep. So I'm going to call that one a wrap. Just going to set it over there. Where's the other one? Ooh. Extra chunky. I can hear it crackling, and it's like, sounds like Rice Krispies. Probably doesn't taste like Rice Krispies though. Probably tastes like I don't know, all bran. Mueslex, that's what it tastes like. Is that? Yeah. That's the screaming is coming from my neighbor's house. Someone probably just got. Did you hear that? I think someone just got murdered over there. Okay, call that one a day too. I don't know, can you see? Can you see all the chunk on there that builds up so quick? Like, look at that. You can just push the metal right off there. It's pretty wicked. Okay, yeah, I gotta call it because the resist is starting to get compromised too much. But it's okay, it's good. It's got a nice depth. So, what I'm gonna do is just set this over here. Hang on, let me ditch these gloves for a second so I can actually get you guys where you can sort of see what's going on here. Sorry, hang with me. Alright, so just gonna set this over here. Gonna get this somewhere. Okay, got that out of the way. Ooh, spicy. Spicy. Yeah, let's give these another rinse. Never mind the mess of dishes over here. Oops. Sorry. I can just hear that doing the Rice Krispies like crazy when I put that baking soda on. But that'll just stop the reaction where we're at. Because what that's going to do is create an oxide layer real quick all over the surface, and it basically seals off the metal that hasn't been eaten yet from the stuff that's eaten. And it just creates a barrier around it, and so that'll protect all the edges where we've got them now. Alright, so I'm going to get some of this cleaned up, and I'm going to go make some room on the good camera again so that we can actually see what's going on, and then we'll take a look at the next step. Now that I've got these all etched, all that's left to do is just basically I'm going to dip these in a bath of acetone and get rid of the resist, and then clean them up. Alright, I got that sitting in acetone. So I'm just taking off the resist now. Trying not to splash the acetone on everything. Hopefully I could put a glove on, but I think it's gonna eat right through the glove. Let's find out. Alright, so here's after I've taken the paint off. I just put it in an acetone bath. I haven't done a very good job of, like, I haven't cleaned it up at all. Haven't sanded it. You can see I haven't even taken all the paint off. So it's still pretty dirty. But just so you can get an idea of the results there, you can see the depth. I'll show you a look around. All in all, I'm pretty happy with it. You know, for the first ever sort of try at any of this process and any of it, I don't think I could have realistically hoped for better results. So, you know, definitely a lot of lessons learned, a lot of valuable lessons learned about this process. I'm 100% confident that next time I'll be able to do a lot better, which was kind of the whole point of this, right? I needed something that didn't matter to experiment, to try out the process. Because I took a lot of licks along the way, some of which you guys saw, like the resist not quite taking, not planning out my, you know, the actual submerging it and whatnot. But, you know, I have to say that it turned out pretty good, all things considered. Like, you know, I didn't get the depth that I was going to achieve, which is going to be hella deep, but it's still quite deep. I mean, there you can see, like, the pretty obvious blunder, nothing left of the tapped E32 holes, so those all turn into a vent of some kind. And you can see different spots. I left some tabs, sort of, where I'm going to be doing some more electro spot etching or engraving. The only etching experience I have is with spot etching, just electro etching, so this needed to be done. Before, you know, I can really try to acid etch anything that matters. But yeah, there you have it. Pretty good, all things considered. So now with this piece here, I can continue putting the vents in. Get all the smaller vents in the lower section, and yeah, pretty slick though. It's pretty cool process. You know, it's gonna do a lot for customizing saber builds. That's for sure. You can really get a lot out of it. Does a lot to the look. This one here, this test piece in particular, I'm still gonna, you know, I held off on etching the because the bottom piece here is quite a bit thinner, and I was worried that hold on, let's get this in the light where you can actually see it. The depth that I was going to achieve on this would have been too much for this narrow. This bottom section here, everything below here is bored out extra wide of an ID to hold internals. Still crazy narrow, but because of that, this section of wall right here is way thinner than anything else. And I was worried that my original depth that I was going to hit, had the resist held up, would have gone right through this. And then since I couldn't acid etch this bottom part, I didn't want to acid etch the top part just to keep the look consistent. In retrospect, knowing that I was going to stop etching a lot shallower, I could have very well etched both of those sections, because I wouldn't have gone anywhere near going through the bottom section, as it turns out. But that was the plan. So now what I'm going to do with this is just electro etch both those narrower sections there. Yeah, this was, just the experimental piece anyway. So yeah, anyway, that's acid etching Rev 1. Thanks for checking out, and hopefully you guys, can get a little insight about doing this yourselves if you're looking to do that. Alright, peace guys. Yeah, I totally need to make checklists of things that I plan to go through, because I never remember to say everything. I wanted to show you a couple of things just to hammer home a couple of the lessons that I learned, so that you guys don't have to learn them the hard way. So, prep for this, like I said, most of the work was the prep for getting the resist on. I did it old school. I just taped it off, cut out the pattern, and painted it. And if you're going to go that route, it's cool. I recommend, it's a nice way to do it. It's super simple. You don't need any kind of extraneous equipment. Everything's cheap, and there's a real art to drawing, cutting out patterns out of tape, and it's super handy and hobby work for a lot of stuff. So, it's something that's worth practicing anyway. But if you're gonna go that way, what I did was I took a lot of time taping this off, putting the pattern on, and then afterwards, when I put on a bunch of coats, all the areas that you saw were painted up that I didn't want etched, but any areas that had hard edges, like 90s, I had a hunch that the paint was gonna settle on there pretty thin. So I went around and I hit some of the trouble spots with nail polish. And I put nail polish on anywhere that I thought it was likely the paint was going to sit really thin and possibly etch through, and because I knew the nail polish would glob on kind of thick. Well, it worked. It was a great idea, so that's something to consider. But one thing I didn't do is I didn't do it in enough spots. I underestimated the areas I should do that in. I only did it around the switches here where it seemed obvious, up around in a couple spots around the threads, because the threads seemed like the paint was going to sit pretty thin in those, so I really gobbed it in the nail polish in there, in here and in this knurling. But I should have done it on absolutely any spot that had a relatively harsh degree angle. So anywhere where there's more than a 45-degree angle, or even less, a 30-degree angle, if you have a little bit of a plane of a focus, see the ribbing here in between these grooves? Notice see how it etched through a little bit along the tops, and it's always along the edges. See that? I should have put nail polish along those edges too. Just basically really watch that you put a lot of coats, and make sure that you get anywhere where the paint might go thin. Do what you have to do to make sure that that's properly got a resist on it. This is no big deal. It's shallow enough I can sand any of that clean again. That's one hard lesson. And obviously you guys saw my whole problem with the resist while the process was going on. Make sure you've planned it out, that your piece is properly submerged, so you don't have to mess with your piece that much, because you'll just take the paint off and wreck your resist. So don't do that. And then in general, I didn't do a perfect job of, obviously it did nowhere near perfect job of cutting this pattern out, right? That's an art that I've got to get down. But I mean, even for where I'm at right now in terms of my skill level, it didn't turn out quite perfect. If you look in some spots, you can see areas where I didn't quite get, like, okay, where here for instance, the resist didn't quite hold up on that edge. See, and it etched a little bit and got ugly. Same with here on some of these edges. There's even a couple spots where it blatantly. Let me see if I can find one. Where? Over here. Okay, there. Here. See how? Notice. Oh, it's gonna be really hard to see. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to show you there. See that little line along that one edge? Where is it? If you look very closely there, you can see just a hairline where that's actually where the resist was, but just some grime settled on. Like that's where I cut the line for the pattern, right? And the paint only went to that hairline, but actually a little bit didn't etch outside of the line because some of the film from the paint settled down along the edge and prevented the etching process right there. So it, like all there's plenty of imperfections, but that much I expected. Where it's just I need to get better at this in general. But the little bits that you see etching here, that can totally be avoided. That's something that I'm gonna make sure that next time I'll get. Anyway, yeah, sorry guys, I just forgot to show you that. Okay, anyway, see ya.